The recording started at 9:02 a.m. on a Thursday in October. Nadia did not plan to use it for anything. She recorded every lecture. It was a habit she developed in high school when a teacher once told her she had misheard something. And she had not misheard it. The phone sat flat on the desk in front of her, screen down. No different from any other Thursday. Dr. Fenn taught research methods with the confidence of a man who had never been wrong in front of an audience. He did not use the projector for citations. He spoke them aloud and moved on. If a student asked where something came from, he would say the literature is settled on this, or you can find it in the readings. The readings never cited it either. The claim came on the fourth week of October, mid-lecture, dropped in between two slides about survey design. Fenn said that consumer loyalty was primarily driven by brand familiarity, not product quality, and that this had been the consensus finding since the early 2000s. He did not slow down. He did not name a study. He moved to the next slide before anyone could write it down completely. Nadia had read two papers that week that said the opposite. Both were peer-reviewed. Both were published after 2005. She wrote the claim down in her notebook, circled it, and put a question mark in the margin. In the library that evening, she found three more studies. None of them agreed with Fenn. One explicitly called the early 2000s consensus view a methodological artifact. She raised her hand the following Tuesday. She was not accusatory. She said she had read some papers that complicated the consensus he described and asked if he could point to the source he was drawing from. The room went still. Not with drama, with the specific quiet that happens when a class realizes a question might not have an answer. Fenn said the literature was settled. He said the papers she was citing were outliers, likely methodology issues. He said that in his class, any source was valid as long as it was cited correctly. The quality of the argument was what mattered. He said it pleasantly, with the finality of a door closing, and moved to the next slide. Nadia wrote it down, not his tone, not her feeling about it. The exact words. Any source is valid as long as it is cited correctly. The quality of the argument is what matters. She underlined it once. She did not look up when she wrote it. The recording was still running. The next paper assignment came 2 weeks later. 5 to 8 pages. A research question of the students choosing minimum 6 sources APA format, the same citation guide Fenn had handed out on day 1. Nadia chose her research question the same night the assignment was posted. She did not tell anyone what she was planning. She opened the citation guide and read it once, carefully, from the first page to the last. She argued the opposite of his claim. Consumer product quality, she wrote, is the primary driver of loyalty when brand familiarity is controlled. She built the argument across 6 pages, drawing on 4 peer-reviewed studies published between 2006 and 2021. The 5th source was her own primary data, a brief survey she ran with 42 classmates in 2 other sections. The 6th source was Dr. Elliot Fenn. The citation read, Fenn E. Class Lecture, Research Methods 301, Kellerman University, October 14th. It was formatted exactly according to the citation guide he gave on day 1. Lecture transcript, recorded, available on request. She had transcribed it herself manually from the recording she made on a Thursday when she was not planning to use it for anything. She submitted the paper on a Sunday at 11:47 p.m. She did not tell Simone what she had done. She went to bed and slept without difficulty. Some things only feel significant in retrospect. At 11:47 p.m., she was just a student who had followed the rules exactly as stated. Papers came back the following Friday. Fenn handed them face down in a stack and said nothing about the class average. He moved through the rows without stopping. When he reached Nadia's row, he paused for half a second. She noticed. She kept her eyes forward. He placed the paper on her desk and moved on. The written comment at the top said, "Interesting argument, strong structure." The grade was a B+. At the bottom, in a different ink, a darker blue, he had written, "This citation is not academically appropriate. A lecture transcript does not constitute peer-reviewed evidence. Please see me during office hours." She went to office hours. She brought the citation guide. She had highlighted one line with a yellow marker. Any source is valid as long as it is cited correctly. She had also brought the recording on her phone and the transcript she had typed herself. She sat down across from Fenn and placed them on his desk without speaking first. He said a lecture transcript was not a peer-reviewed source. She said she had not used it as one. She had used it as a primary source, which the citation guide explicitly permitted. He said this was a technicality. She said the syllabus did not use that word. He said he expected better judgment from a student with her record. She said she would like the grade reviewed. He said no. She said she would contact the department. He said that was her right. She thanked him for his time, collected the documents, and left. She did not close the door hard. She did not pause in the hallway. She walked to the stairwell and went down to the first floor. where she sat on a bench near the exit and wrote out everything she remembered from the conversation in her notebook. She emailed Professor Ose Boteng the next morning, not from her phone, from her laptop, sitting at the library table with the citation guide, the graded paper, the recording transcript, and a printed copy of the syllabus in front of her. The email was 4 paragraphs. It described the lecture claim. It described the exchange. It attached the transcript with the citation formatted exactly as stated in the citation guide. It asked for a grade review under the department's academic fairness policy. Boteng replied in 40 minutes. He thanked her for the detail. He said he would look into it. He said she should hold on to everything. She forwarded him the audio file that same afternoon. He replied with a single line, "Received, thank you for your thoroughness." In the meantime, life continued. She had 3 other courses. She had a group project due in 2 weeks, and Simone studied at the library most evenings, cold brew in Simone's thermos, the 2 of them at the same oak table near the window. Nadia did not talk about the appeal every night. Some evenings they talked about Simone's thesis, or about the food cart near the courtyard that had changed its menu without warning. Dr. Marchetti received the case materials from Boteng in the 3rd week of November. She was the department's external reviewer for academic disputes because Boteng believed those should not be handled by a direct colleague of the faculty member in question. Marchetti had been brought in twice before. Both times she had found in favor of the student. Both times the faculty member in question had disputed the finding. Both times the finding had stood. Fenn received a formal inquiry letter 2 days before Thanksgiving break. It informed him that a grade review had been initiated under Department Policy 3.4.2, that a committee reviewer had been assigned, and that he should make himself available to respond to questions in the 1st week of December. He read it twice. He set it on his desk. He went to the faculty lounge and poured a cup of coffee that he did not drink. He told a colleague over lunch that it was a student on a fishing expedition, that these things happened, that it would come to nothing. The colleague nodded and asked about his research. Fenn talked about his research for 15 minutes. He was working on a paper about consumer behavior. He mentioned that he had submitted it to a journal 6 months ago and was still waiting for the review. Nadia spent the break at home. She did not think about the appeal every day. There was her mother's kitchen, and a cousin she had not seen since July, and a film she watched twice because the first time she fell asleep. She checked her email once a day, in the morning, before the rest of the house was awake. Nothing came from the department until December 4th. December 4th, Marchetti sent her preliminary findings to Boteng. The citation, she wrote, was formatted in complete compliance with the course citation guide. The citation guide in question was a departmental document, not a Fenn original. It made explicit provision for primary sources including, and this was her word, verbatim, transcripts of oral proceedings. It had been in use for 4 years. Boteng called Fenn into his office on December 7th. He was not unkind. He said the citation was valid under the guide in use. He said the B+ was being revised to an A-. He said no further action was required at this time. Then he said the phrase "at this time" in a way that had weight. He said he hoped Fenn would review the citation guide himself before the spring semester. Fenn left the meeting and walked the long way around the floor to avoid the main department corridor. He went to his office and sat at his desk without turning on the lamp. His blazer was still on. The inquiry letter was still on his desk. The formal department letterhead visible at the top. He had not moved it since Thanksgiving. Nadia received the grade revision email on December 8th. She was at the library. Simone was across from her, finishing a draft section. Nadia read the email, closed her laptop and said, "They changed it." Simone looked up. Nadia said, A-. Simone said, "That's not an A." Nadia said, "No, but it's what the work was worth." She opened her laptop again and went back to the problem set she had been doing before. What Nadia did not know yet was that Marchetti had included a footnote in her report. The footnote noted that the course syllabus contained 3 factual claims without citations. It noted that 2 of those claims were directly contradicted by recent peer-reviewed literature. It was a footnote. It was not the focus of the report, but it was in the report, and Boteng had read it. In January, Boteng requested that Fenn submit his spring course materials for a standard curriculum review. Fenn was told this was routine. Fenn had been teaching for 11 years. His materials had never been reviewed. He submitted them in the 3rd week of January, 2 days before the deadline. He did not update the citations on the 3 slides Marchetti had noted. The curriculum review found 4 additional unsupported claims in his lecture notes for the spring term. One of those claims had appeared in his published paper that had been under journal review for 7 months. The journal reviewer, coincidentally, had flagged the same claim in a revision request that arrived in Fenn's inbox on February 3rd. Fenn responded to the journal reviewer with a 2-page letter defending his methodology. He cited 5 sources. 3 of them were his own prior publications. The journal reviewer replied with a two-sentence response. The external reviewers do not find the defense persuasive. Please revise by March 15th or the submission will be withdrawn. He stared at the screen for a long moment. He opened the curriculum review document that the department had sent. He read the 4 flagged claims. He recognized them. He had been saying them in lectures for 6 years. He closed the curriculum review. He opened it again. He did not start the revisions. The kettle in his office went cold on a Tuesday in February. He had a small kettle he used for afternoon tea, a habit from his postdoc years in Edinburgh. He filled it at noon. He forgot it. He found it at 4 p.m. The water still in it, cold. He poured it out and did not refill it. He did not make tea again that week. A colleague stopped by his office on a Wednesday and asked how the paper revision was going. Fenn said fine. The colleague asked what the journal had flagged. Fenn said methodological notes, nothing significant. The colleague nodded and left. Fenn had not opened the revision document since the day the two-sentence response arrived. Nadia was having a different February. Her thesis prospectus had been approved with minor revisions by the committee. Simone had celebrated with coffee and a shared pastry at the cafe on Vestry, the one with the western-facing windows and the chalkboard menu nobody updates. They sat at the corner two-top for 2 hours. Nadia ordered the same thing she always ordered. It was a good February. The undergraduate research symposium was held in early March. Fenn had not submitted an abstract. He had submitted an abstract every year for 9 years. Boateng noticed. He did not say anything. He noted it in his department calendar, a small notation in ink, and moved on to the next agenda item. Fenn's review deadline for the journal passed on March 15th. He had sent a 2-sentence email 3 days before the deadline saying he needed an extension. The journal did not grant extensions for second revisions. The submission was withdrawn on March 16th. He found out from the automated system notification at 8:12 a.m. on a Saturday when he was in his kitchen at home. The paper had been 7 months in that journal. He had mentioned it at the faculty holiday lunch in December. He had mentioned it to the colleague who stopped by his office. He had listed it as in press on his faculty profile page, which was technically premature, but a common enough practice. He logged in that Saturday and changed the status to submitted. He stared at that for a minute, then changed it to in preparation. He sent an email to Boateng that afternoon asking whether the curriculum review findings would appear in his annual performance review. Boateng replied on Monday, yes, with context, as part of the standard process. Fenn read the reply and did not respond. He had a meeting with his intro-level course students that afternoon. He arrived 4 minutes late. He did not apologize for it. The annual performance review meeting was in April. It was not a termination meeting. It was not a formal reprimand. It was a meeting with Boateng and 2 department senior faculty in a small conference room. They went through the curriculum findings, the grade appeal outcome, the journal withdrawal. Boateng used the word pattern twice. He did not use it the 3rd time because he did not need to. He was asked to revise his course materials for all 3 of his classes before the fall semester, and to submit them for review before July 15th. He was also asked to attend a pedagogical development workshop in June. He was not required to attend. It was strongly recommended. He nodded. He did not say whether he would go. In April, Nadia was finishing her thesis. She worked mornings at the library, evenings at home, with the kind of focused regularity that comes when a project is finally the right size for the container. Her prospectus had been approved. Her committee had been scheduled. Simone's thesis was ahead of schedule, and they celebrated that too. The same two-top at the cafe on Vestry, the same chalkboard menu. Fenn began revising his course materials in May. He started with his research methods course because it was the one under the most scrutiny. He removed the slide about consumer loyalty. He tried to find a replacement study. He found several. They said what Nadia's papers had said. He reread his own lecture transcript, the one she had cited. He sat for a long time with it on the screen. He attended the pedagogical development workshop in June. He did not say much. He sat in the middle of the room, not the front, which was unusual for him. The facilitator was younger than him. She said that in academic pedagogy, the credibility of a claim does not transfer from the person making it, only from the evidence supporting it. Fenn wrote it down. He did not know why he wrote it down. He just did. The spring semester ended and Fenn's office felt different. He had moved the inquiry letter to a bottom drawer in May. He had cleared the desk. He had stopped wearing the blazer most days. He made tea in the morning at home now instead of in the office. The kettle sat on the office desk, still there, but he had not used it since February. He had not been invited to join the summer research committee. He had been on it for 5 years. The invitation went to a younger faculty member instead. No one told him directly. He found out when the committee meeting was posted on the department bulletin board, and his name was not on it. He stood in front of the board for a moment. Then he went back to his office. He tried submitting the revised paper to a second journal in July. He spent 2 weeks on the revision. He tightened the methodology section. He added 4 new citations. 2 of them were studies from 2019 that directly contradicted his original claim. He kept his conclusion mostly intact because changing it would have meant writing a different paper. The second journal sent a desk rejection in 11 days. He sat in his home office for a long while after the rejection email. He looked at the stack of reference books on the shelf above the desk. He had bought most of them in his graduate years. Some of them he had cited in his dissertation. He pulled one from the shelf and opened it to the bibliography page. He had not read it in full. He had cited it without reading it in full. He had been doing that for years. He submitted a corrected curriculum package to Boateng on July 12th, 3 days before the deadline. The cover email was 2 sentences. He said the materials had been updated per the review findings. He said he had attended the workshop. Boateng replied with a single line, "Received, and will be noted." It was the same reply Nadia had gotten in November. Fenn did not know that. Nadia defended her thesis in late July. Dr. Marchetti was on the committee. Nadia did not know Marchetti had been involved in the grade review. She had read Marchetti's published work before the defense because that is what you do when you know who is on your committee. She cited one of her papers in the introduction. Marchetti noticed, as she noticed most things, and marked it without comment. The thesis passed with minor revisions. Marchetti's sole comment was, "Your methodology section is unusually tight for a junior year undergraduate thesis." Nadia wrote it down. Not in her notebook. In her email drafts folder, the one she used to archive things she wanted to keep. Fenn saw Nadia once more that summer, in the department corridor in early August. She was returning a borrowed research text to the department library shelf. He was coming out of Boateng's office. They passed each other in the narrow corridor. He said good afternoon. She said good afternoon. Neither of them stopped walking. What happened to him afterward was not dramatic. He revised his fall course materials. He attended a second faculty development session in August because a colleague was running it, and he had nothing else on that Wednesday. He did not submit another paper that year. He taught his classes. He asked students to cite their sources with more care than he used to. He did not explain why. He had a moment in October, standing at the podium before a lecture, when he looked at the third row, and the seat where she used to sit. A different student sat there now. He did not dwell on it. He started the lecture, but he had looked. Nadia was not in his class anymore. She was in her final year. She had a carrel reserved in the library and a reading list that ran 12 pages. She ate breakfast at the same time every morning and walked across campus in the same direction and had become, without particularly trying, a person who knew how to stay steady. In November of her senior year, she received a departmental award for the undergraduate research paper with the highest methodological rigor in the academic year. The award was a certificate and a small cash prize. Marche had chaired the selection committee. Nadia found out when Boateng knocked on the library carrel door and handed her a sealed envelope. She opened it in the corridor, not at the carrel. She did not want to show her face in the library when she read it. She read the certificate. She read the award amount. She folded it back into the envelope and stood for a moment in the corridor near the photocopier alcove where nobody ever stood. Then she called Simone. Simone said she wanted to see the certificate. Nadia said she would photograph it. Simone said no, she wanted to hold it. They agreed to meet at the cafe on Vestry at 5. Nadia said she would bring the certificate, and Simone said she would bring pastry, and Nadia said bring the good ones, not the ones from the front display, Simone said obviously. Fenn taught his November lecture on consumer research methodology without the claim about brand familiarity. He had a new slide in its place, a 2019 replication study properly cited, full author names, journal name, year, page range. He moved through it the way he moved through everything now, with a little more care in the spaces between sentences. He sent an email in November to the first journal, the one that had asked for revisions in February, asking if a new submission on a related topic would be welcome. They replied, "Submissions are open, and your prior work with us is on file." They did not say the prior withdrawal was on file, though it was. He submitted a new abstract in January. It was a different paper, a smaller claim, better supported. He did not reach out to Nadia. He had her email address from the grade review correspondence. He composed a message twice, once in December and once in January, both times in a draft he did not send. The first draft said he wanted to acknowledge that her citation was technically valid. The second draft said he thought her methodology chapter was strong. He deleted both. He knew what they were. He did not reach out. He did not apologize to the department. He attended the spring faculty meeting in February and contributed twice, both times on procedural items. He was no longer the person in the room who spoke with the confidence of a man who had never been wrong. He was a faculty member with a revised curriculum and a note in his performance file, and a kettle he no longer used at the office. His class evaluations from the spring semester were, for the first time in 4 years, above the department average. He saw the report in June. He read it twice. He could not tell if the improvement was the revised materials, the pedagogical workshop, the absence of the consumer loyalty claim, or something harder to name. He kept the report. He did not file it where he filed the good ones. He filed it separately, by itself. He began making tea again in June. Not at the office. At home. He filled the kettle every morning and sat with the cup at the kitchen table before he opened his laptop. It was not a redemption. It was a Tuesday. Most mornings are. He was not a changed man. He was a changed faculty member. The distinction mattered. His instincts were still toward authority, still toward the confidence of someone who had a PhD and knew what the literature said. But now he checked. Before lectures, before submissions, before telling a student the literature was settled, he checked. Nadia graduated in May. Simone walked beside her through the outdoor ceremony, both of them in their gowns in the morning light. After the hooding, while everyone else was finding their people, they found each other first. They stood beside the water fountain outside the Kellerman building, the one with the sign that still said out of service in the same handwriting. They had their picture taken there because neither of them had planned a better spot. She had been offered a position in a research firm that did consumer behavior studies, among other things. The irony was not lost on her. She did not mention it to anyone at the ceremony. She noted it the way she noted most things. In a color-coded notebook entry, neat handwriting, a small check in the margin. That evening, Nadia and Simone had dinner at the cafe on Vestry. They ordered more than usual because it was graduation. They sat at the corner table, the same one, and talked for 3 hours. Simone was starting a research assistant position in September. Nadia was starting hers in August. They talked about the gap month between school and work as if it were a small country they had just been granted citizenship in. Simone raised her cold brew in a toast and said, "To citing everything correctly." Nadia raised her coffee cup and said, "Every source, properly formatted." They did not explain the joke to anyone. They did not need to. Some things land better when they stay between the two people who were there. They walked out of the cafe after 9, the street quiet, the evening still warm. They went in different directions at the corner, and Nadia walked home through the same route she had taken for 3 years past the Kellerman building. She did not stop at it. She did not look up. She walked past it the way you walk past a place that was once larger than it is now. She was home before 10. She sat at her desk for a moment before getting ready to sleep, the same desk where she had submitted the paper on a Sunday at 11:47 p.m. The desk had been many things this year. Tonight it was just a desk. She turned off the lamp. She started work in August. The firm had a citation protocol. On her first day, they handed her the style guide. She read it from the first page to the last. Her new manager asked if she had questions. She said, "Just one. Can you show me the primary source for that methodology claim on page 7? The manager looked at her for a moment, then smiled and said, "I like you already.